Well, hello and welcome to day number one of the EMS Leadership Summit. My name is Robbie McHugh, and I am here with Lisa Druzzi. Lisa, welcome.
Hello. It is so good to be here. I am so excited. We have been getting amazing feedback all day long from people who have been watching amazing speakers from today. And I'm excited that we have some speakers to welcome tonight, and just so proud of what you and I have put together for this event. I am just thrilled. I can't help it.
I am thrilled to be here with you and have our speakers in the green room that are joining us for today's sessions. But first, Lisa, I'd like people to just comment below. Again, wherever you're watching this from, we are live streaming. We'd love to hear where you're joining in from. So city, state, country. I ran the numbers today. We have over participants from over 44 different countries that have joined us. So really getting a global perspective. So comment below if the audio sounds okay. Comment below where you're joining in from. We'd love to take your Q&A, especially for our expert panel here today. And we'd love to just hear your comments. And so feel free to comment below. I guess to cover some basic things, if you want to access the sessions from today, you can go to emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. And in our exhibitor hall, you can click through, and I will just share quickly the screen here to see all of our sessions, as well as all of our amazing vendors here and supporting organizations. So you could see here, exhibit booth number 1, it says free pass sessions, or if you've already grabbed your all access pass as a VIP, you get lifetime access to all the sessions. You can click through there. Otherwise, click on the free pass sessions, and you will have all of the day one sessions here available for 24 hours.
Yeah, until 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, they are available. So,
and then tomorrow's lineup, you'll be able to, right now they're kind of grayed out, but you'll have play buttons here if you want to check out tomorrow's sessions or the entire week's worth of sessions. They're all available for you, first access through the exhibitor hall.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the different speakers, and we're giving you 24 hours to watch each of them, but it's a good idea to see which ones you really want to make sure you see and schedule that time in your calendar, because it can disappear. The time disappears before you know it. So we've been getting a lot of great questions in the lead up to the summit from people who have registered and just commenting on what they want to get out of it. So we hopefully will get to some of those tonight, and we will get to some of the questions that our viewers have for our presenters.
Absolutely. And feel free
Oklahoma's in the house.
Browse our other booths as well. We have various sponsors making this conference free, including Technomount, Ninth Brain, FirstNet by AT&T, the folks at Binderlift, Fairfax County Fire Rescue with a recruitment booth, the folks over at IA Med and the CME Collective. If you haven't already, you could register for a lunch and learn, a virtual lunch and learn this week, where we're going to hook people up with $15 Grubhub gift certificates and vouchers for registering if you're interested in the latest clinical cutting edge pre-hospital education. So let's go back here. I'll stop sharing. And yep, we've got Michigan, Washington in the house, Louisiana,
Spring, Texas, Salt Lake City, Iowa. Wow, it's awesome. LA, did we say that already? It's awesome. We have quite a bit of folks. Hopefully we'll have more people tuning in from around the world.
And there's Rob Lawrence from our panel discussion. Great.
Absolutely. And what was I just going to say? Just went out of my head. I'm so excited to be here. Did I mention that? Yeah, we had a great lineup today, kicking it off with Rob Cook and ending the day today, was just a full day of various presenters sharing their expertise with us.
Well, Lisa, we should bring our live panelists on. We can take your questions. Feel free to drop a question in the chat. Otherwise, we've got lots of other questions that folks have been writing in about. So we'd love to get to those for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So we will bring on Scott Moore,
Hey, Scott.
David Daniels.
Usually I'm better than that. I'm usually better at the unmute, but yes, thank you. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Oh,
Absolutely.
glad to have you. Hi, David.
Welcome.
Glad to be here. Howdy doody.
Good to have you.
Chris Mantina, how are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Glad to be here.
Gonna bring on Alexia. Alexia, how are you on the West Coast? And of course, we've got Rob Cook.
Oh, hey, Rob. How you doing?
What's going on? How y'all doing?
We're doing great. We got quite a lineup of speakers tonight. It's awesome.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for who you are in the world as well, and sharing your expertise on day number 1 of the summit. And this isn't even the whole lineup, but we've got almost the whole lineup from today. So thanks for taking the time here and being with us.
Yeah, so should we just go around and have people say a little bit about their session, or do you want to start with some questions?
Yeah, let's have people go around, talk a little bit about the session that we recorded. We'd love to let people, give them a little bit of a taste of what to expect from their session. That'd be great. So
let's start with Rob. You are here. You were actually our first session. We gave people a preview last night, a special bonus. They could start watching your session last night, along with the expert panel that Alexia was on. So Rob, how about if you just start us off, share a little bit about your what your presentation was about, and anything else you'd like to share to our EMS professionals.
No, I want to thank you and Robbie first for the conference. And also by putting me first, I didn't have to follow any of the amazing panelists that I'm on after. It was kind of like, whew, okay, cool. So now you get to compare, I'm not compared to them type thing. So it felt amazing. No, but I'm just happy to be here. Happy to share well-being with the community that does such amazing work. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being able to tap in and point to something that not only that I've read about, but I lived through for myself. From the 21 years I served to transitioning as a civilian and as a coach and speaker. It was a lot of dark times in there that required me to tap in to something special to get out of them. So I'm just blessed to have reached that. So here to share and happy about it.
Yeah, the conversation we had about resilience was really profound, and I really hope that people watch it and get as much out of it as I did. I shared last night. I've watched it 3 times. I actually watched it again today, and I was as blown away by your sharing, even having seen it. So I really hope people watch that. So. And then Scott, your presentation on climbing the professional ladder was today, and one of the points I think you made that was so great, and I'd love to have you talk more about, is how it's incumbent on leaders to really create a culture of learning.
Yeah, well, actually, it was sort of our presentation. I rewatched it again today, and I thought, God, frankly, it was a far better presentation because of that dialogue and your experience and background. But I do think, just briefly, one of the things we often hear from folks in the field, and you would have heard this if you got a chance to watch it today, was that, I would love to do this if we had the finances or if we had the time. But I think, a lot of times when you probably look back in your time in learning and your professional development, probably less so has it been from sitting down and reading a book, although you got something there, that usually sort of sets some foundation. But it was really in those experiences from the people who you either mentored or you were mentored by. And I think, as we talked about in the session today, that it's incumbent upon the leader in the organization to set the culture. And Chris talked a lot about culture. But if you set that there's an expectation that your organization is a learning organization, that your team members are all learning folks, and Lisa, your recommendation for the library, again, there's literally no reason why every one of our stations, regardless of whether it's a station with someone who's slated to be in leadership, right, is having this, that sort of information, books and other material around resources, and even, frankly, every EMS agency should be sending the link for this conference out to every one of their staff members, because at one point or another, most of us were working on a truck. And so I just think that it becomes, if you will get what you expect, and if you, the culture that you set. So I think if you're setting that culture to say, look, you just aren't going to be able to come here and be who you were tomorrow, today, that's just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Really, really great.
And I think it ties into to building that bench of leaders before they get promoted or before they get thrust into that leadership role. Why not give people the tools rather than having them kind of fall flat or try to learn from their mistakes when the damage has already been done? And maybe we could turn it back to Chris and talk a little bit about, I know we've gotten questions about people that are struggling right now with either constant change or leadership, and maybe you want to just take one of those questions, Chris.
Yeah, and thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this. Especially looking at the panel that I have tonight, it's very humbling to be a young educator, a part of this. And to answer your kind of piggyback on your question, Robbie, I think it is very important that we set our future leaders up for success earlier on. Why are we not building this into paramedic level curriculum or EMT curriculum? At least the baseline stuff. We don't give them the tools to do the job until they get to the job, and then we go, hey, here you go, figure this out. It's not a recipe for success. It's a recipe for continued disaster. And if we don't start reapproaching how we deliver and foster future leaders in our industry, we're going to continue to fall flat and short. And, I agree with Scott. Every EMS agency out there has whatever, if you're dealing with medicine or not, even in other industries, this is a really good conference to pull a lot of good leadership tips in. But one of the questions I think that I saw tonight that I would like to kind of hit on is one of the viewers, they kind of brought in and their concern about how leadership and how to lead a team through just constant change, especially in the pandemic. How do we adapt to those times? And to kind of lead off of Scott a little bit, it's really going to be dependent on the culture you already had set for your organization. And that's going to kind of dictate kind of the outcome, because the more culture that you have within an organization, like I mentioned yesterday in my talk, the resiliency part, as we get tested, as organizations get tested, they go through growth, stress, budget cuts, things like that. Resilient organizations, if they have a really good culture about them, they're going to be able to grow and adapt to that, because as Scott alluded to, it's set, it's the expectation, it's the norm. So, how can you be an effective leader and be authentic and avoid emotional burnout? You can do all three of those things. It takes time and learning. Once again, I've learned a lot from my mistakes and from my mentors. However, I wish I would have learned a lot more earlier on, so I didn't have to make as many mistakes. That would have been very helpful for me as a young professional. But having compassion fatigue and being an effective leader and being authentic, especially with how do you address burnout right now, you got to be honest. A culture is surrounded by honesty, right? And being transparent. So, as a leader, it's really easy to kind of, depending on your leadership style, kind of wax or wane or kind of bend the truth or the situation perhaps. Whereas if you are just real and authentic, I think that's what employees are looking for. That is what your mentees are looking for. They want mentors that are going to be just straight and honest and tell them how it is. I'm not always going to tell you it's rainbows and sunshine. It's just not real. But if I tell you, hey guys, it's going to be a hard time. But this is why it's going to be a hard time. We're all going through burnout. We're trying to get the ships covered. But if you guys can hold on and rally around each other, we're here to pick up the slack. So when we get through this, it's a give and take. And just being real with your employees is going to really set the precedence. And I think that's just one of the ways that we can do and take that step into leadership. Just be transparent. Be real. It's okay. I think we've grown in this professional industry of I need to look kind of, fake it till you make it. Imposter syndrome is a very big thing as well. But this is not the time to be an imposter. This is the time to be very real with your shortcomings as a leader, being very real with your shortcomings as an organization, and more importantly, how are you going to go forward? And if everybody is aware of what the mission is, they hopefully will be able to get in line with that and help you achieve some of those goals.
Chris, so well said. And I think one of the main keys is the flexibility in leadership styles too, and choosing when to be more of an adaptive leader depending on the circumstances, for sure. And I think it plays well into what David talks about all the time, this this concept of psychological safety in organizations. And maybe David, you can talk a little bit about, the constant environment changing and how do people really deal with that?
I find the conversation really interesting when I hear people talk about, they seem to be surprised that things are changing. And I find that interesting. I believe that human beings are much more adaptable and adaptive than they give themselves credit for. Otherwise, we would have 7 people in diapers waiting on our next bottle to be fed to us. Change is the way we survive. If you don't evolve, you will become extinct. So why we bring people into EMS, to fire services, to law enforcement, to public works, to whatever people do, and somehow convince them that it's going to be this static every day is the same thing. I don't quite understand that. However, I also hear this discussion about folks not feeling like they necessarily have the tools. How can you get the tools if the system itself didn't give them to you? Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed. When people ask me, was I in the military? I say I was in the domestic military. So, I was listening to Rob today talking about being in our country's military. I was in the domestic military, and in September it will be 40 years ago. I signed up almost fresh out of high school, and they said you're a Seattle firefighter. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But what I figured out over the course of time is that there are these competencies that you will be given that'll help you survive. And so they spend a lot of time, like a lot of other, fire rescue organizations, spend a lot of time with the technical stuff, but we did spend a whole lot of time with the human being stuff. And that's what translates across all industries, all human interactions, is we don't spend enough time talking about the fact that leadership is in effect, advanced relationship building. That's all it is. It is, how do I relate to these people? So they say that if you're a leader and nobody's following you, you are simply out going for a walk. How do you get people to follow you wherever it is you all are trying to go? We may be going totally different directions, but if you're the leader and you want me to follow you, you've got to figure out a way to get me to go that way. And it won't work if you assume that all of us are the same, that we all have the same needs, that we all have the same concerns, that we all have the same expertise, that we all have the same. We're different. And it is incumbent upon that leader to begin to form that relationship with the people that they say they want to lead, so you can understand what is it going to take to get this person to go the direction that we are all trying to go. That's it. It's really not as complicated as all the discussions and classes and tests and whatnot. It is not that difficult. It is me and you. We are going there, right? First of all, we have to agree on that as well. A lot of times, folks get into leadership positions, but there's never really a discussion about what that means for how do you lead? How do I follow? And I think if we could take more time to just have human conversation about how do I get one human to go where the other human wants to go, and we can go together, and that's made clear up front, that's also where the conversation about safety comes up, because if we're going to go that way, so if you want me to go with you, here's what I need to go to follow you. Here's what I need. If you want me to lead you, here's what I need out of you. We've both got to contribute on the leader and the follower side. And the more of those conversations we have and the stronger the relationship we have, the less issues we're going to have.
That's so good. I love that advanced relationship building, really. And that is, people tend to make leadership a thing, like some, thing versus this adaptive, fluid, dynamic role, really. And it's not a position, as we say at the EMS Leadership Academy. It's the role. It's a role that's flexible and it's dynamic. And it's not like you need to have one style that you use, everywhere. But really, what you brought up about being curious about the folks that you're leading and wondering about, what's important to them and why would they want to do this, right? Like, why would they want to go in this direction? Like, what's in it for them? And then what is it you need? And so often it's just completely missed. And we really appreciate you returning for the third leadership summit, but also you were part of our psychological safety summit. So I believe you are the 4-time presenter, and we just are never going to let you go. I hope you know, David. You are.
Yeah, I have to mention 2 other things. One is a happy Star Trek Day. I don't know if anybody knew that today was the 55th anniversary of the first edition of Star Trek coming out. The other was, and I gotta say it because I'm so happy about it. So that this discussion we've been having about psychological safety, I was able to use those discussions. I was able to submit my dissertation to my chair this morning.
Wow.
So
Nice.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good time just for a brief reminder. Folks are just tuning in. We are on the EMS Leadership Summit's first daily debrief. We'll be going live every day with a panel of select speakers from the day. Folks can still spread the word, and they can still sign up for free at emsleadershipsummit.com. You'll get an email every morning with a list of speaker sessions, or just head over to our virtual exhibitor hall, and you'll be able to watch the sessions for free for 24 hours. And I think that's, David, you mentioned communication, and I think it's a great transition to talk a little bit about both what's needed for and necessary for internal communication. We had a panel discussion with Alexia from REMSA, from Rob Lawrence with the American Ambulance Association and Prodigy, as well as Mark Tenia from the Richmond Ambulance Authority, talking about how do we create better communication. David, you said that it's we often assume that people are all the same, or we assume we know what people want. Often we aren't willing to ask them what they want, or we're not willing to ask them, what we're missing. So Alexia, we'd love for you to chime in a little bit and talk a little bit about communication and your background and your successes with communication through this challenging, ever-changing time.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations. It sounds like the event is off to a great start. So thank you so much. And I totally agree. I think sometimes we worry about asking people what they think or what they feel because they might tell us, right? And then we have to do something with that. And David, I also think you're talking about relationships, and oftentimes I will tell people that I think it should not be called public relations. It should be called public relationships, because that really is the foundation of the work that we do with our internal and our external communication. Whether you're posting, a social media post and hoping for engagement, that's a type of relationship that you're building. Or if you're making a pitch to a reporter, that's another relationship you have the opportunity to build. Same with when you're sending out a weekly email with information about your organization to your employees. I think it's also important to remember that communication is a two-way street. It's a dialogue. It's a feedback loop. And so often I think leaders want to just send information out and not be open to receiving that message back. One of the things we talk a lot about here at REMSA is our providers, our healthcare providers in particular, checking their email. That's a struggle that we have. And as much as we want to, put these parameters around them and say, this is definitely what you have to do, they're also sending us a message. They're telling us this is not really how we in this generation or in this work environment want to engage with our employer and our organization. And we have a hard time kind of embracing that message and adapting and flexing to meet their needs. So I think there's always opportunity for that if we are, as leaders, quiet enough to hear it and embrace it.
Well, I think the other thing too, and I think what you're talking about points to something Robbie and I talk about all the time, which is, culture also is all about communication, right? Because how does culture get built, right? By people either verbally or, written, or all those kinds of communications. But there's also the communication called I'm interpreting. Right. I'm interpreting. Yeah. And that's a form that's, Robbie and I always say communication is everything, and everything is communication, because our brain is constantly interpreting. So if you keep sending out emails and I don't communicate that way,
right?
Or that's not what's that communicating, right? Like, and then that, has a ripple effect. And then people start looking for, what other ways am I not taken care of here? What other ways do they not care about what I think? And so then it becomes this, all it was, and your point may have been, we were just sending emails, right? But who knows what the actual, communication is for the folks who are sort of feeling frustrated, and on both sides. It can also be, oh, we're sending out emails and nobody's responding or reading. They don't care. Nobody cares. We have disengaged people. And it's like, wait a minute, there's so much interpreting going on here. No one's dealing with what's actually happening, right? And it can all be cleared up by simply asking a question.
Right. And taking time for some of that face-to-face communication. Again, like we've said, ask them how they want to receive information and then meeting them where they are. So, I was talking with someone the other day, and probably for everyone on this panel, this has probably occurred to you, but we talk a lot about, it's so hard. We send our employees away from us for 12 hours a day to go, sit in their ambulance and take care of patients. And so it occurred to me the other day that we were the original remote workforce, right? In EMS and mobile out of hospital healthcare. And now there's so many conversations post-pandemic about how do you engage with your remote workforce? How do you conflict resolve with your remote workforce? And now I think this conversation that's happening is a great opportunity for us to kind of dig in and look at some other industries, maybe about how they're approaching this problem about connecting with a remote workforce. There might be some ways I think that we can really benefit from that conversation.
No, that's brilliant. That's really brilliant.
I think it's a great time just to take a quick break and remind folks again, day number 1 on our daily debrief of the EMS Leadership Summit. And I know, Chris, you've got to get running here in a few minutes. So I wanted to thank you for being on today's live session. Encourage folks, if you haven't already checked out today's lineup of sessions, check your email box, head on over to our virtual exhibitor hall, and you can see the full lineup of speakers, as well as I just got to plug this virtual lunch and learn idea we're doing on Friday. So you can sign up to the first 100 people who register. It's filling up pretty quickly. We're going to issue Grubhub food vouchers so you can order food at home for the virtual lunch and learn a little bit more about some of the cutting edge clinical education over at the CME Collective. Chris, can you give us just a minute or just a quick synopsis of the CME Collective?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Robbie, for having me. I got to go hop off and play dad. My wife's been stuck in the OR for 16 hours doing a CT case. So going to take care of the wife and the kids. But in the CME Collective, essentially, high level, really quickly, if you're able to join us for a lunch and learn, I'd love to have you come join us. We talk a little bit more about it. But when it comes to the CME Collective, I even took a different approach. We decided that, not one type of education is the best type of education. And so we decided to pull different partners within the CME Collective. So we have partners such as Heavy Liza Helmet, two brothers that started out a critical care podcast and now is accredited. We also have Sal Rezai with Heavy Liza Helmet. We have Prep Medic, which is a YouTube channel that delivers tactical medicine, and he's also doing critical care stuff. We also have Master Your Medics, things like that. We have Media Pros with Charlie Swearingen. So we have all these different partners that are part of the CME Collective, allowing agencies to kind of pick and choose and customize their learning for their agency based on where they're at. And the cool thing is it's all plug and play, so we can move and match and basically deliver something that's going to hopefully, impact your agency based on your agency's needs. And so, it's really just a collective of really good high-level industry professionals that came together to form this thing. And we've been working on it for 3 years now, and seeing it come to fruition has been it's been a great journey.
Well, it's great to see folks on the cutting edge of clinical critical care education out there. Some of the latest and greatest podcasts and your ability to get CME credits. So definitely, folks, check that out. Join the Lunch and Learn on Friday. So, Chris, I know you've got to hop off. We'd love to have more of your time, but we understand you've got a lot going. Everyone's got a lot going on, and we appreciate you being here. So we've got some other panelists to get to, and we appreciate you being here, Chris.
Absolutely appreciate it, Scott, Dave, Rob, Alexia. It was definitely an honor to share the platform with you today. I really appreciate that. And thank you guys. And Robbie and Lisa, congratulations on such a phenomenal, and what you guys are doing is just so inspirational. And I think Scott hit it. Everybody needs to be taking advantage of this and having this pathway, and you guys offer it for free. If you're not taking advantage of this style of learning and leadership, even if you're not a leader right now, you will be someday. So don't wait. A lot of agencies don't give you this stuff. Go out and get it. It's what you want to choose. Choose your own adventure. Level up. So thank you all. Have a great night and stay safe.
See you later.
Great. Choose your own leadership adventure. I love it. So maybe Rob, you could give us some insights as far as your presentation, really what folks can expect if they haven't watched it already, or any maybe insights you've had in this conversation here as we talk about this world of constant change and some folks experiencing a burnout and whatnot.
Oh yeah, really just love even the exchange we just had here.
Yeah.
And all of what it pointed to was, one, less judgment on us the leaders, the older generation, two, how the new learn. I remember learning as a parent, I was parenting my daughters after as if they were growing up in the inner city, gang-ridden publics like I grew up, but they were growing up on a military base that had guards. So it was not necessary, but I didn't understand. I was putting on them what I experienced and not really knowing what they were going through, so I could provide what they needed and how to develop them. And it required me to listen. I know I was the father and in the authority role, but it caused me to have to sit down and ask questions and not take it personal. And I learned that, as using that in my leadership throughout the military was just, okay, slow down. Tell me what's going on. And from there, we'll figure it out. May not end, with a medal, but we'll figure it out, So I think that what Chris said about the authenticity of the leader, that transparency and what that does. I protected many military leaders, from Air Force Chief of Staffs to commanders of special operations to secretaries of the Air Force. And man, the ones that I saw with impact were those who were authentic. Those who were willing to say, oh, crap, I made a mistake, or, oh, that was a miscalculation, and share why. Or those who would go the extra distance to ensure everybody understood the shared context of what we were doing as a mission. It takes a little bit more than just putting the email out, as Alexia said, and expecting that to develop and grow the organization. No, it's me walking around. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say, you said something really important there that at least it resonated with me, that, you said, you were sort of imparting upon your children as a mechanism of raising your children what you had experienced. And I think that, like, parenting, the core competencies of the core functions of parenting really aren't different today than they were, 50 years ago. I think they're the same. It's just the way that gets communicated and affected, right, is different. And so, kids still need some boundaries. Kids, just like, and I'm not making comparison to employees and children, but what I'm saying is all relationships, whether they be work, family, or organizational or community relationships, they're all very similar and require. And essentially, what you need to do is look at what are those core competency, those core functions, and then, as Alexia pointed out, like, if it, often I've said it's not that they're different, it's that we're not changing. And so I think it's a function of, it's a function of recognizing that, email, my kids laugh at me when I mention Facebook, and to me, Facebook is still new. It's not. And so I think, again, and I know Alexia and I've talked about this issue before about employee engagement, that you need to meet them where they are, because, as I hear people say, we have an open door policy. I think that's a cop out, right? That's a cop out for meaning you got to come to me. And I go, the door is open so you can leave it and get out there and engage them where they are. Because if you're expecting them to conform to where you are, you're actually requiring them to do the work, and leadership is work.
I love that. Yep. The door is open so you can leave too. That's so good.
Yeah, you can leave and go see what people are doing, right? Instead of having them have to come to you.
Without all the judgments and assessments that we tend to bring along.
Yeah. And it's intimidating as an employee to come into a leader's office sometimes. So, you're better off to meet them on your ground, because probably you're better equipped to deal with that uncomfortableness than maybe your employee is, right? And if your goal is to really meaningfully communicate with them, you want to eliminate any white noise that surrounds that or prevents that communication from occurring. So, I just think meet them where they are, get them in their own environment. And that's when, and by the way, stick around longer than just, hey, how you doing? Because half the time I got caught one time saying, hey, what's going on? And they said, well, if you're not going to stick around for the answer, why'd you ask the question? And I was like, yeah. And I sat down and get past the hi, how you're doing? Because what you're really saying is hi. Yeah. Get past that and really, because you do send messages all of the time. Turn the volume off on your TV and try and figure out what's going on in the scene. And most times you'll figure it out. So,
yeah.
I think we've got some great questions here from the audience. This one, it's a little bit long, but how can I get administrators to buy into new communication methods that my staff prefers? Most staff have requested communication through text, but administration restricts the use of mobile devices while on duty. Their reasoning is people think that you're on Facebook if you have your phone.
Well, one thing on this, what if they're talking great stuff about your organization on Facebook? Hell, like, don't stop that from happening. And
right.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, I wanted to share a thought that's kind of connected to both what Rob and Scott were mentioning. That what is similar is the strategic goals that we have as human beings. We all still want to eat. We want to have shelter. Even in military wars, going out and killing the bad guy. What has changed, or what should have changed, is the tactics and tasks that we achieve those strategies with. So the goal of raising children is the goal itself is the same, but how you do it, it has to be different because the kids are different. It has to be different as a leader because people are different. I heard a speaker say once that different does not necessarily mean deficient. And that's what every generation says, oh, that younger generation, blah, blah, blah. No, they are simply different. It doesn't mean it's deficient. It means it's different from the way that you do it. And people lose sight of it. So what is the goal? The goal is for this organization to achieve X. That's the goal. How we achieve is where arguments come up. It's how. It's about how. And frankly, I think smart people figure out as long as the how is legal, moral, and ethical, it doesn't matter. What can this group do to achieve the goal that we have established? That's all that matters. So if we can do that electronically, great. If we need to do it in person, that's great as well. Did we achieve the goal? And I always throw in, did we achieve it and achieve it safely? If we did that, what's the problem? A lot of our rule books and whatnot should be burned and thrown out in the trash because they were written for people 20 years ago who are no longer here. And the reason that we have so many rules is we don't trust the people that we're supposed to be in a relationship right now. What is it that we are trying to achieve with this group? That's what's important.
Yeah, that's so spot on, David. I could not agree more. And it never ceases to amaze me when I'm working with a leadership team or coaching executives with all the supposed tos and shoulds. And it's like, well, who said so? Like who, and then they don't even know. It's like some, inherited story, right? And, people are so busy shooting on each other and shooting on themselves that they lose sight of what's actually happening in front of them. And they don't allow people's best to come out because I think you're right. So many of the rules are because we can't trust people, right? Like we have to control people versus no, these are really bright people. How do we allow them to be the best they can be?
Mm-hmm.
We have a bad thunderstorm just rolled in here.
We absolutely do. My lights are flickering, so I got a backup plan over here just in case with some battery power. But somebody from the audience suggested too, Facebook Workplace, again, a different environment if you're concerned about people.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Robbie. There are platforms out there like ZipWhip, which is a texting app where you only have access to the app and it sends text messages from just play. It's a lot of different platforms out there that you kind of have for people to talk on than Facebook to communicate. So
yeah.
And one more point. I think a lot of the challenge with trust starts with, and I heard Rob was talking earlier about the time that he took to get to know himself, and I think that's an underutilized and underemphasized skill. How in the world can you lead me if you don't know where the world you're going?
Yeah.
How can you relate to me if you haven't related to yourself? How can you care for me and really care about yourself? I can tell, by some of the ways that you treat yourself.
Yeah.
And so a lot leadership starts with personal leadership. It's me getting to know me, trying to figure out what is important to me before I present myself to be a leader in an organization. And then it's about the organization creating. So leadership is not just a competency, it's also a system, because people are going to be different, and we need systems around that. Again, a lot of compliments to the military. Thank you for your service, but you don't just get promoted because you showed up, because you rode a truck around for a few years. You don't get promoted for that. I mean, who does that? Just because you were good on the shop floor, that doesn't mean that you're going to be a great leader because you had technical skills. And this goes back to Scott, your background as an HR professional. A lot of our promotional hiring types of systems, they're trash as well, because they rely simply on the tenure of the individual and the observations of 2 or 3 other individuals, and we just toss them out there, and we don't do these assessments up front, making sure that people have the training and the background and the tools that they need to do this job, whatever this job is, before they get the job, not after they wreck it.
Yeah, I love that. People, folks will be like, how long? I've been here 25 years. I go, but let's be honest, you kind of sucked for 24. And they go like, excuse me? And I go, well, I mean, let's face it, you quit like 3 or 4 years ago. You just keep coming in. And so, that's part of that I go, geez, to your point, one of the things that you said during your talk, Dave, that resonated with me was you said hurt repeatedly in the same place causes damage, right? And that's what happens in my experience, or at least my thoughts, is that when we continually sort of try and force that round block into the square hole, try and make them conform to the way that we do things, we are just continually causing insult. And that damage, I think, to quote you, requires invasive, you said care, but I said correction, right? And so, again, that's one of those things that I just think that, it isn't that they've changed. It's really that we haven't. And so, you gotta get back and revisit and meet them where they are, because, again, if Facebook is one of the most powerful platforms in the world, why are leaders not leveraging it to every possible extent that they can?
Right.
Well, Scott, I think sometimes that comes to, although we're in this of service, we all don't have the same kind of agenda at hand when you go to it. It's okay if you get well, but if you follow me as the leader, and so that leader has what they want to be. I think it really has to become selfless in the sense where we look at your professional and your personal. I also want to know, I want to send you home the way you were sent in. I owe that as your leader to your family, to send you home in a space where at least you can operate and function as a husband or a father.
Yeah. Well, because if you don't just employ a person, you employ their whole family.
Absolutely.
And nowadays, especially in EMS, hell, first of all, how many families are formed from relationships in EMS? Even though as an HR professional, I argue against it. But I will say that my spouse was an EMT at a service I went with. But again, if your employee is not good at home, they're not good at work. And so, you have to, Rob, to your point, you have to take care of the whole person. And frankly, there's not one baby boomer or one greatest generation person who, despite the fact that they would say, I worked at the same place and they just, I didn't need to be, if you said, hey man, would it have been easier if they had helped you and your whole family? They would have been like, hell yeah, it would have been great. So, it's at this point that folks, if you're doing the same thing you did yesterday, if you're not 100% if it works, you probably need to re-examine it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think we have to remember that, every generation that comes after, we created, right? They want things to be better because we went home and bitched about, excuse the expression, complained about, wanted better for them. What parent doesn't want their kids to have a better life? If you are a parent and you don't want your kid to have a better life, I don't think that exists. We all want, I'm not a parent, but I want my dog to have a better, but I mean, parents want their kids to have a better life. And then when there are a demand for a better work environment, we're like, what's wrong with these kids today? It's like, dude, we did that, man. There are, and it absolutely makes me just shake my head when I'm working with people who are employers, or I mean, I do a lot of work in businesses, and it's like, where do you think they came from? We didn't import them from Mars, man. Our kids, But I wanted to say one other thing that you brought up, David, about how if people could get that different is not deficient. Mm-hmm. That would, of all the other brilliant things everybody on here has said, that it would just make such a difference in the workplace. It would just, it would just make in the world, let's face facts. But, I just love that.
Right.
It worked for Apple, right? Think different. Even though it's think differently, but you think different, right? And again, I think, how's what we're doing now working out, right, for the workforce challenge? Again, it's just not. We're in probably as tough a time as we've ever seen, and so what? If you see solutions, even if those solutions, and by the way, probably the best place for solution is in your stations and on your trucks. Mm-hmm. If you're doing what you did forever, you just probably got to revisit it. And I say, revisit it, because if it's working, great. You now know that you don't have to put any of your effort there, and you can focus it in one of the areas that's not working.
It's so well said. And I mean, we've said it over and over again, that structure drives behavior, which drives results. You have exactly the results you have in your organization because of the structures that are in place, which is the great news, because you as a leader, or you as any position really in your organization, can influence the leadership to get them to change the structures to get new results. And I think that message is so hard for people to understand. They think everything is built in stone. They think because, we have to do this at every meeting that we have, because that's the way it's been done for 50 years. It's written into our bylaws. Well, guess what? Go change your bylaws. Go change your SOPs. Right. Somebody created them at one point. There's nothing stopping you and your leadership team from creating something from new. But I think we all get stuck and mired in the problems. All of our attention as leaders gets focused on putting out the figurative fires that are going on in our organization. And we rarely take time to carve out our schedule or to get with other leaders and say, what do we want to create? What do we really want? What are we all committed to? Right. And have those conversations around intentionally designing the future you want. Right. That future that's so magnetic, it just draws people in. Yes. Those are the conversations I love to talk about. Everybody who loves to talk about the problems. Do you ever leave a conversation full of problems feeling like, well, that was a great 2 hours of my time, but imagine if you spend a few minutes just talking about leaving people on a bit of a high note, or what do we want to create more of? I mean, that's much more of an exciting conversation to me than let's just focus on trying to fix people.
And every single system is perfectly designed to produce whatever it's producing. Yep. and so if you want something different, it isn't. The problem is not the people. Often it is the system. We put these really good. You didn't go out and hire terrible people. You didn't go out and recruit people. You suck. And why did you hire them? Because then that still goes back to the system. If they were so much of a problem, that goes back to you as a leader, because you hired them. You put the application out. You reviewed them. You interviewed them. You took them. It is the systems that we put these really good people into. And then we get rid of them, we pitch them out the door, and we go out and look for another one, and we never go back to the system itself. The system that didn't give them the safety information they need. The system that didn't train our supervisors. And this one I got to bring up because I've been thinking about it since yesterday. This issue that we can't afford it is also ridiculous. Money is only an issue in the absence of value. We can always find money for the important stuff.
That was good.
Period. And so if leadership is important, that means, you do have to pull the truck off the street to make sure these folks get their ongoing training. And you do have to spend time sending them to opportunities to hear people like Rob and Scott and Alexia talk so they can get better. It's not just putting them out in the street and how come they're running more calls. People need development. They need opportunities to get better, and that costs money. That costs money. And frankly, if you don't want to invest the money in these people, I'm not sure why you hired the people.
Boy, that was awesome.
David is.
I wrote it down. Honestly, I have a bunch of quotes, and now it's Dave Daniels' quote. That was great.
But listen, I do want to real quickly push the button on something though. I know this is a leadership summit, and I know we're talking to leaders, but I also have a challenge for those who are followers and those who are not yet in the ranks. Push for the education. Ask for different types of communication. Go explain and be your authentic self of what you're not receiving from your leadership. Don't just sit back, because as we say, the older generation will fade off. And just as Lisa said, we are what we created. What do you want? Think about your legacy now from what you do going forward. So if you're not getting it, go find it, get it to your peers, so you can continue to grow and develop. But don't let yourself die because you may not have the proper leadership who's guiding you. The resources are available, and that's not taking the responsibility away from the leader. But man, with this day and age of what we have, accessible information anywhere, you shouldn't be left behind.
Guillaume here made a comment about in the comment section, says, what are the challenges of the next generation? It is more difficult to communicate. And I would bet money, if you asked your average 20-something-year-old if they have any trouble communicating with another 20-something-year-old, the answer will be absolutely not. And so it is more difficult for us to communicate with them, but that's an us issue, not a us issue. And so, listen, I'm not some tree-hugging, millennial-hugging person. I'm an HR guy by nature. We don't hug anybody. But what I'll say is that, I've captured once or twice in conference sessions a millennial or Generation Zer, and we've studied them greatly, like captured Bigfoot. And we say, what's important to you? How do you like to be communicated with? And often I hear stuff that is exactly how I feel about how I want to be communicated with. Sometimes it's the message is the same, the mechanism or the delivery method is a little bit different. And it may very well be, for example, my kids text me from the other room for a glass of water. Now I act like I didn't get it until they come out. But again, it's a function of, if I really want to meet with them, if I really want to connect with them, sometimes it's that I got to go take a drive with them and listen to music or something. Like that. That's just, and leadership can be hard work, but it's actually the greatest work you'll ever do.
Absolutely.
Well, I always thought HR was human relationships, and then I found out it was human resources.
There are two schools. They're either you are, Julie McCoy in The Love Boat, or you are the Grim Reaper. You fire everyone. There's no in between.
Yeah. Well, this is an amazing conversation. An hour has almost flown by. I'm thrilled that we had a chance to all get together to have these conversations and hopefully, spread the good word about leadership and what's possible in your organizations. We have folks joining from around the world, growing audience out in Kenya, who since last year's summit, I believe, have started first response organizations. And it's great to see the growth and the development happening from around the world. So we hope you'll keep us updated as far as what you're getting out of this summit and these conversations. Drop us comments, send us an email, support@emsleadershipacademy.com. We'd love to get your feedback. We want to thank Fire Rescue TV for simulcasting and broadcasting this whole live session through the Fire Rescue TV network. So we're streaming out to over 400 fire stations and EMS stations across the country. So thanks to Martin at Fire Rescue TV.
Hi, Martin.
It's so great. It's so great. The power of technology and what we've been able to leverage with LinkedIn Live and YouTube and this great platform. So we'd like to just remind folks that they can still spread the word about the EMS Leadership Summit. You can visit our virtual exhibitor hall here and see the complete lineup of speakers, again, over in booth 1 here. It's not too late to grab your all access pass. We're offering lifetime access to all the speaker sessions, as well as some action guides and CAPC approved CME credits for as little as $97. That price will go up at the end of the 5-day summit. So if you're thinking about upgrading, you can take us up on that offer. Again, this page and check your email has all the links to day one session with all these great speakers you're hearing from today. So with those, maybe some final thoughts as we conclude our day one session and wrapping up. We'd love to hear from some of our speakers. And Lisa.
I would like to hear from the speakers too, but I just have to say, on the heels of what David mentioned, you know, and I know coming from me, this is probably not good, but it just seems to me that $97 for over 30 sessions, it's like a library for lifetime access. And it just, it's so, I don't know, it's like, it's free, but also like $97 for lifetime access. It just hit me like, that's awesome.
You pay more for Netflix over the course of the year, so
much more, right? For cable or something like that. So anyway, I know one of you should have said that, but
like I said, I think I kind of started that conversation. But when people tell me they don't have money to do something, what they're telling me is it's not important. That's all. And the same thing when the organization says you don't have money for that, I'd rather you just say it's not important, because I see you spend money on all of these other things, including lawsuits and throwing money away on all kinds of other ridiculous things, and we won't invest them in the things that we say that are important. And it's more than just salary and benefits. It's wonderful to see they're our most important resource, so we pay them well. You pay them well and treat them like trash, which is the reason that they're leaving. So it's about making investments and things that are good for the entire organization. So again, folks who say, well, we don't have money. Well, why are you open? I mean, here's an opportunity for you to get training for a bunch of people for $100. Come on, seriously. And like, as Rob was saying, the folks who need this, if they won't give it to you, find someplace else to work who will. Just say it.
Now you know why we have them at every summit.
It's so good. It's over and over again. I've said, the quote, show me your budget and I'll tell you what's important to you. It's like, why don't we have budget line items that are investing in the training and education development of our people, our most important asset, and it can only have a positive return on your investment as an organization. So
it's what's your preventative maintenance budget for your trucks, what's your preventative maintenance for your equipment, and what's your preventative maintenance budget for your humans.
Okay.
So well said.
That's a great point, Scott. I was thinking, when people ask me what I do, I tell them I protect and promote the brand and reputation of our organization. That's my job as a public relations practitioner. And I think it's really important when you think about your brand and reputation, every one of your employees is a brand ambassador. And I think making that investment, just as you would, as you say, making sure the paint is fresh on your trucks and your uniforms are clean, your employees are just as much a reflection of your brand and reputation. So it's important to maintain and build those relationships.
Oh, so good. And it's like, when we've often said people have the issue with recruitment and retention. And when you think you're not recruiting, you're recruiting. It's those conversations you're having outside of work that are having a ripple effect on how people see your organization. So what are your people saying? After hours, it can be just as important. And, it's our responsibility as leaders to take 100% responsibility for that outcome, because we have the power to change it. We have the power to dictate and fight for our budgets that are going to fund our organizations and that are going to have a positive impact on our community. So, yeah, so well said, Alexia.
And the one relationship I also want to remind people of that needs to be protected is the one you have with yourself. Make sure you prioritize your self-care. I know budgets are important, and I know leadership advancements and medals and everything is important. But the best thing you can do for this community and for the people we serve is to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that is so true. That is just so true. And we have a number of programs dedicated to that topic, a number of sessions, because it is so overlooked and so sorely needed in this community, in particular, in this industry.
Yeah,
So thank you.
the old when it used to be that we hiked 50 miles to work through the snow and stuff. We projecting it on the youngsters now and forcing them to live from that statute of no, asking for help is a problem. No, saying no, that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
It's not. Ask for help. Take care of yourself.
Well,
Absolutely.
beautifully said. I think we'll finish up this live session, and Lisa and I will go over tomorrow's lineup of day number 2, because we've got some great self-care strategies, some great with Wendy Lund and some other speakers, so we can cover that.
Robbie, can I just add one more point
Absolutely.
before we go?
Anytime.
I do have to. So you and I and Lisa had a conversation some months ago about the Academy in general, and I have to tell you how impressed I am with the diversity of speakers. Yeah. It's not just the diversity of the topics, but look at what's on the screen right now. We are giving people an idea about the fact that EMS doesn't have to always be this homogeneous group of the same people looking the same and same gender and all that type of thing. And I'm just so very impressed by that. I'm proud to see the strides, because folks need to see that, everybody can do this. Everybody, and folks come from all over the world. They can do it. They look different. They see things different. But I really just want to give you all just high five, kudos, for taking the time to look for diverse speakers, people who look different, who think different, who not, in some cases aren't even doing EMS at all, but they just bring something to the table that folks need. So, cheers. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It means the world to us, David. Thank you so much.
That's intentional too, right? I mean, Dave, we talked about this as intentional diversity. Mm-hmm. It has to be intentional. It won't happen by accident.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just making sure that as many voices are heard in an industry, unfortunately, that's too homogeneous. Is that how you say it? Homogeneous. Sorry. Sorry.
It's late.
It's been a long day.
A long 6 months.
Long 6 months. Put this together. You knew what I meant. I just wanted to, demonstrate what it looks like to be authentic and screw up every once in a while. But thank you, really. No, all kidding aside, it means the world to us, and we were very intentional, and we're delighted and honored. And we even have a presentation in French this year, our first presentation in a different language. So thank you, Technomount, for providing the translations.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about it's so important to get and value diverse perspectives in organizations. It's one thing to listen, it's to authentically listen and to value people's perspective and not invalidate their point of view. So we thank you for that. Folks, this has been an amazing live. Tune in tomorrow for our next daily live session. We're going to be live every night here for this 5-day summit. This is just day number 1. We're just getting started. We appreciate each and every one of you that's been on our live sessions, that have just been there to share your wealth of knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This was fantastic.
All right. We're going to go over to tomorrow's agenda in just a moment here, Lisa.
Yes. I'm looking at the comments. We got a lot of people saying how great this session was and how much they got out of it. Come on, this is awesome.
We are getting a lot of great comments here. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate the speakers for sure, and for sharing their knowledge. And we really hope that it's resonating with folks. We hope that it's making a difference, not only for you, for your organization, for the people in your organization. So tomorrow's sessions, day number 2 of the 3rd annual EMS Leadership Summit. We have here speaker Russ Brown, the host of the Med Inspired podcast. We're really looking forward to his perspective on burnout in emergency medicine and a growth mindset. We've got Chris Cebollero, a returning speaker, Ultimate Coaching, his book that just got released, Ultimate Coaching. Chris is a best-selling author. We've actually even added a virtual lunch and not a lunch and learn. We've got one of those. We added a virtual book signing booth for Chris's book here. So check that out. You can get a copy we've got it on here for $9. You can get a signed copy. He was generous enough to sign all the copies and ship them to us, and we'll ship them out to you. $9 plus we charge $1 for shipping and handling for that. So check out our virtual book signing. We've only got about 25 copies left, so feel free to check that out. And tomorrow's sessions.
And he is such a dynamic speaker. I really, really love that presentation that he did. I mean, he always does a phenomenal job for us, but this was a particularly dynamic presentation. So look forward to that one.
So here we go. I found where I left off here, where we left off. So
and our lovely Wendy Lund.
Oh, Wendy is an incredible human being, folks. If you don't know about Wendy Lund, tune in, Google her. Wealth management. That's WELL, wealth for wellness. I mean, what Rob Cook talked about, what David did, what our great panel tonight talked about is how do we take care of ourselves first? Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't possibly take care of other people in our organization. Wendy's talking about COVID long haulers as far as like the trauma that our providers have been enduring on the long haul, and how can we spiral up? How do we become more aware of this trauma stewardship, this trauma, the psychological effects of the trauma that's being experienced during this pandemic, added on to, the already difficult job that we have in the pre-hospital world.
Right.
So
it wasn't hard enough.
Wendy does a phenomenal job. Her master's degree in mindfulness studies, bringing the science to mindfulness, and as an instructor for over 30 years, she knows a thing or two about what paramedics deal with.
Yeah, she has a ton of free resources on her website, so definitely check that out.
Absolutely. Ryan Spack from the Response Operations Group at FirstNet by AT&T. I'm even going to hop over there quickly because I'm a little bit proud of the booth we put together for FirstNet.
You should be. The truck alone, my goodness, it's fantastic what you put together, and the little therapy dog Rogue.
Yep. Rog the dog.
Rog. I was
for the Response Operations Group. Learn about in the U.S. resources that are available through the FirstNet Authority, powered by AT&T. Rapid deployable assets in case of emergencies. They've put together a phenomenal booth. They've put together great resources, and we talked to Ryan. Excuse me for skipping around. We talked to Ryan tomorrow, and you can really learn about his Response Operations Group and the benefits to priority and preemption, especially when it comes to disasters. We've got Lewis here joining us from South Africa, giving us a global perspective on low to middle income countries and what they're dealing with and the challenges that they're facing. So again, we talk about gaining new perspectives. This is definitely a great opportunity to again see that we're not all that different when it comes to the challenges that we face. And so Lewis did a great job highlighting the challenges that they're facing in South Africa, and especially with the added pandemic. Asbel Montez, wait till you tune into this session, talk about a top-notch expert in healthcare policy and how politics plays into policy making. So when it comes to, I think he said 80% of our funding mechanisms typically come from some form of government support, whether it's local or federal in any country. And he talks about countries with universal healthcare, countries without universal healthcare. And he does a phenomenal job talking about how we can become more aware of it's not only what's said, but what's not said in conversations, and how politics and policy kind of are interweaved to, comes to funding our organization. So Asbel did an amazing presentation, and I can't wait for folks to see that tomorrow. And
he's scheduled to be on the live tomorrow.
That's great news for folks to tune in tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern, this time tomorrow, wherever your time zone is. And Lisa, if you want to talk a little bit about Marcus.
What a great session. Marcus talks a lot about recruiting in a whole different way. I mean, I learned so much from speaking with him, and where he talked a lot about taking care of the whole person, and you're not just recruiting a body, right? You're recruiting a whole person, and what does that mean? And this the innovative strategies that he shared with us, that he's using and has used in the organizations he's been a part of. So that was a terrific conversation, and to hear from someone who has had such a different, diverse background himself and it was terrific. And then last but certainly not least, Duncan he's also going to be with us at the live tomorrow night. He RSVP'd, and what an amazing career he has and the difference he's making out in the world. And what I love about his talk is he's sharing how he, the things he was doing in sort of developing countries, he's now taking those strategies, and he took a position where he's using those same leadership strategies, and how, he shares what works and what didn't. And, it's all about transformational leadership. So it's a terrific presentation. And I'm excited that he's going to be joining us from Australia.
Yes, from the northern territory of Australia. He'll be joining us.
So it'll probably be the morning, Thursday morning when.
Yes, he'll be in the future.
Wait, no, it'll be Friday morning.
Friday morning.
Friday morning, yes.
All right. Well, Lisa, this has been a blast. I always enjoy these lives, and especially this great discussion tonight. We want to thank all of our sponsors who have been so great to make this conference a free virtual conference for anybody to attend. I'm thrilled that we've had folks from 44 different countries tuning in to learn more about leadership development. It's so exciting.
That is so exciting. And, we really hope that people will go to the virtual hall. Each one of the booths is interactive. So Binderlift, for example, is offering a free trial.
Free field trial. Yeah, you can get your people can get their hands on this device. And
IAMED is offering a discount. Ninth Brain, you can get a opportunity to see their stuff. Technomow, I mean, everybody's offering something. So please go to these booths and interact with them. You'll find great information, as well as just things that will benefit you and your organization. And we can do this for free because of our sponsors. So please support our sponsors. Another shout out to Fire Rescue TV. I can't see which one you have open. I'm sorry.
So right now it's I've got the Resuscitation Academy and the Citizen CPR Foundation as a special treat. We're going to leave this session up all week so folks can access this. It was a great conversation on challenging sudden death in your community with two of the premier organizations that are just driving great resuscitation in their communities, great survival rates. They've provided a bunch of resources here, the 10 steps for improving survival from cardiac arrest. So what an amazing panel that was, and great conversation. We're going to leave that up all week. So we're thrilled to, again, feature some great brands and some great partners in this virtual conference space.
Yes. And you did a beautiful job designing it, making it work, Robbie. Inspire me every day. It is so fortunate to have you as my business partner and friend. It's really awesome.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you for being a part of this great. I think we're really. I really hope that we're making a difference in people's lives and supporting EMS providers from around the globe and their leadership development, their capacity building. So if there's anything that folks need, please feel free to reach out. There's many different ways to reach out. And we look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow on the next Daily Debrief. So stay tuned. Check out.
Should we tell people that we're going to have a little reveal tomorrow from EMS Leadership Academy?
Absolutely. We should have hinted at that.
Yeah. We got so excited by the talk. I forgot to mention that during tomorrow night's live, you will hear a little something that we have to offer. We're never before done. EMS Leadership Academy is thrilled to be offering something new and exciting, and we will go into detail tomorrow. That's our teaser for the evening.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being on the live stream. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Help spread the word. Share a link. We appreciate it.